I know how this all goes. So I appreciate you kind of taking the time out of your day.
Of course, man, anything for you. Tampa Bay is now Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I knew that would come up at some point. We'll get to that.
Naturally.
So yeah, just kind of give me a breakdown about you, what you do, kind of your experience, what Glyyd essentially is, what you guys specialize in, and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, of course. So I'm one of the founders of Glyyd. I've been in marketing now for 4 to 5 years, doing any number of different things, mostly sales, traditional media, strategy, and things like that, just to help out different clients from different industries, whether it be local, regional, or national. But we started Glyyd about a year ago, and I handle the day-to-day marketing strategy for our clients. So understanding their buyer persona, their buyer's journey, what their goal is to relay the message of their company to potential prospects or potential customers, and make sure that's relayed in an effective way so that they're being seen when their customers and their target audience is in the right state of mind to be able to receive those advertisements, and hopefully, right, in a perfect world, make buying decisions, to increase the sales and the traffic of our clients. So that's mostly what I help with. Mostly digital marketing, PPC campaigns, retargeting, responsive display, anything that's on the internet, but not social media. We have different departments for things like that. We do content and management.
Yeah, just to name a few.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know what is PPC, what are those things that you kind of that you listed off?
So, PPC's pay-per-click ads, right? We use different ad servers to put our companies and our clients' advertisements online everywhere except social media. So social media, you have to use just different APIs, different softwares, and you're mostly focused on hashtags, search, content. This is a little bit different. This is when your ads are seen while you're Googling, best places to eat around me, right? We link in SEO, which is search engine optimization, to be able to bring your website up to the top so that Google understands what your website is and what keywords and key phrases that if someone searches in Google or Bing or any search engines, that they know what your website does to be able to provide the best websites for the customer. So we help define that. PPC campaigns, like I said, it's pay-per-click. So it's anything digital outside of social media. We can do it through an SEM campaign, which is search engine marketing, where if you search pretty much any product as of right now, right, the ads show up on top before the organic search. That's how you do it, right? There's shopping campaigns where if you go to the shopping list on Google, right, you can see all those ads. There's video ads on YouTube and throughout the internet, right? There's responsive display campaigns, which is those ads you see, within different websites that are either on the side panel or on the top banner, or some of them, the ones with the different bidding strategies are at the bottom. And then retargeting, where if someone comes to your website, we can use different pixels and UTM codes to track them throughout their buyer journey. So we use this effectively a lot because if someone comes to the site and just checks out the homepage and the about page, then they get put into a different campaign than if, let's say, they went to the cart and either abandoned cart or checked out. We have different campaigns that run so that it's effective, right? We build a sales wheel that gets people interested, keeps them interested, buys the product, tells their friends, we re-engage them just to keep them on the sales wheel to help, get our clients like a solid customer base.
And how long do you think something like that's actually been used? I mean, like now we have fancy terms for it. We have, people in the marketing scope, we have certain terminology for it and things like that. But how long would you actually say that exact kind of structure has been happening?
I mean, it's hard to give like an exact time frame, but at least as long as it's been happening to low and mid cap businesses is very recent, right? Because the larger companies like the blue chips, the openly traded companies, like they have massive departments that are able to do this, for themselves. But as far as something like this, like I have these campaigns with companies that only spend a couple grand a month with me, and that being able to offer something like that to even my smaller clients. Obviously, it's all relative, right? Their responses aren't necessarily going to get as much as my bigger clients, but pretty new, right? I mean, I would say in the last 5 to 6 years. So, this is one of the things that I've always been a proponent of, because I mean, you don't want to spend all the money to get the clients to you and then drop the ball, right? Existing business and keeping existing business engaged costs a tenth of gaining new business. So, I mean, I would say the last couple of years, smaller and middle businesses, mom and pop shops, have really been able to focus on and implementing something like that effectively.
Right. Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I always tell like my clients and things like that is, we can put you out in front of more and more people. We can bring more and more awareness to your brand, to your product, to your service, and things like that. But if you don't have a solid sales structure, if you don't have a process that converts, then it's going to be detrimental to what I do. And I think what's really important for anybody watching this to understand is that you specifically really kind of help in that, especially with the conversion process of like websites, making sure that websites convert, tracking like the analytics and stuff like that. So there really is all sorts of kind of rabbit trails you can kind of go down with marketing and how it works. And I think that that's why so many people say that it is like very overpopulated right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like if we're good at it, there's a place for all of us. If the ones that are actually, good at it, we can help the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, the startups get to where they need to be. So why would you say that marketing or digital marketing is so important to small businesses?
So a lot of small businesses that I've had, trouble kind of getting on the same page with them is, they know word of mouth marketing, right? They understand it. A lot of them have social media, maybe like a couple hundred followers if they're lucky. They're pretty active on that. They have like a little team, usually it's a family member or a close friend that does their marketing. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to, and why it's so important is the bigger companies are already doing this, right? And a lot of things that I try to
probably for years. Yeah.
for years. And word of mouth advertising isn't bad, right? It's a staple. It's what you want. You want people to talk well about your business. But what marketing is, it's you and your team telling everybody about your business, right? And if you're able to do the right content and make it genuine and good and direct it towards your target consumer, it should mimic, obviously it's not, they don't know who you are, but it should mimic in close relation to word of mouth advertising and word of mouth marketing, right? Now, why digital is so important is because it's a lot cheaper than traditional, right? You're not spending thousands of dollars for a radio campaign. You're not spending thousands of dollars on production for video, for cable.
It's crazy nationally what people spend on billboards, like the average. It is crazy. And that's just kind of like my little hot take on that is that it is incredibly if I was somebody selling billboards, I'd be sitting pretty, because I want to say that like in California right now, the average is $10,000 a month for a billboard.
Yeah.
And for like my thought process is if you took that $10,000 and even took half of that and put it into PPC, social media advertisement, or, just a brand awareness campaign, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate. You're going to generate more leads. Cause I mean, the average of the time frame it takes for somebody to see a sign, register what it says, and then hopefully be able to remember a telephone number or a name or something like that, they only have like a max of 8 seconds. And that's a lot for with everything, you know, hey, oh, there's a kid in the back seat of the car, make sure I don't run into oncoming traffic. Like there's so much going on. For something like that to be so kind of just overly expensive, in my opinion, it is crazy. Because I mean, I could only imagine what I could do for a lot of small businesses that have $10,000 to just kind of do that.
Well, and that's where you get to the basic fundamental differences between traditional and digital marketing, right? So traditional on average is you pay for a time slot and you get a 30-second, or you pay for a billboard and you get it for a month. It doesn't matter if a pandemic comes and forces everybody to work from home for, you know, like we saw in 2020, right? If usually 10,000 people would pass every hour on this street, and they used Outfront, or, you know, one of the companies, you know, use that conversion level to say, okay, we're going to charge $10,000 a month. If for whatever reason there's construction on that site and on that street, and no one
completely wasted at that point. Yeah.
Same thing with commercials, television commercials, radio commercials. It doesn't matter if everybody's listening or no one's listening. It's the same amount, and it runs no matter how many ears are on it. Pay per click is just like what it says. You're only paying per the people that it reaches. So fundamentally, it's going to streamline it better, and you're going to get a higher conversion. Also, you can measure it better, because I can see when people interact with what ads at what times a day. I mean, if somebody, you know, tells Siri to remember to call their doctor from a billboard or even from a radio commercial, you know, they could call later on. You don't know if it's from that, and you can't measure it correctly, even if you're getting the call 2 days later, where I can see directly, you know, the traffic that it's bringing to your website, and we can pinpoint, you know, and we can pinpoint any pain points throughout your standard operating procedure for traffic to conversion, and be able to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point as far as like the pain points, because, you know, for us, I mean, we're constantly tracking the analytics, making you know, we give campaigns a certain amount of time before we start making any major changes. I mean, you know, obviously there's the rare occurrences of like, that's a whoopsie, like we need to immediately address that. But the constant kind of evolving that happens with marketing, like digital marketing campaigns and things like that, is what I think a lot of people misunderstand. It's not a, hey, we take a picture, we type some fancy words on it, and then we post it. Yeah. That's not, I mean, that might be the most vague, like basic description of digital marketing. Because the analytics that go into it, the constant, like somebody is constantly watching that campaign and making sure that it's performing. And then if it's not, there are adjustments being made in the back end that people will never even know about to adjust the targeting, to make sure that the leads convert, more customers, more sales, things like that. So what would you say is a small business's best course of action if they do want to market their business? I know we've clearly kind of covered the fact, don't go and get a billboard. Sorry to all the billboard companies. This is not a shot at you, but that's not what we're here for.
Well, I mean, if you're trying to figure out how to best market your business, I mean, one, it's do your research, right? Talk to your current customer base. What do they do? How'd they find you? You know, they told their friends, right? What do they look like? And it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily who your favorite customer is or who you want your customer to be. Who's the customer that spends the most money, interacts with your content, goes to your website, is around forever, and is just consistent with their buying habits that make the most sense, right? From there, work your way out, right? Decide the buyer persona. Is it age, 24 to 44? Is it mainly women? Is it men? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Define that, step one, okay? Then, call around to some agencies that do more than one form of advertising, right? Get a good understanding, because if I sell steaks and I want and that's all I sell, if you're looking at trying different meats, I'm gonna tell you steak's the best one, if that makes sense. Like if someone only does video ads, social media ads, one thing or another, and they can't tell you definitively and unbiasedly how this is going to be the best form of advertising for the next 3 6 months to a year, then just keep calling agencies, because agencies will tell you, hey, okay, this is what I'm thinking we could do, right? Give you generic overviews of why it should be effective, and then do your own research. Take you a couple days. Most of it's free on Google. And then from there, decide what you think will be the best option for you. Because all the agencies will give you proposals. They'll let you know roughly what the budget is, right? Is it better for you to do it on your own and kind of take that knowledge and reach out to them if it gets bigger, right? Is it, good to go with a smaller agency because the price difference than a huge or a large one, right? So that's the first thing I would do. Discover your buyer persona, and then from there, be able to give that to agencies to then get their understanding of why you should do the advertising that they're recommending. Ask a lot of questions, and then from there you should get a good understanding of what could be the next path for you in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, and from like an agency standpoint, I mean, if you're upfront with them, like, hey, this is what I'm just trying to figure this out, like what would be my best course of action. You're going to start that, like building that rapport with that agency. Like, okay, they're not necessarily actually shopping for our services. They just want more information. If you tell them that in the beginning, it will take you a lot further. They will work with you, at least in like, you and I, we kind of have that mentality. That way they're not building out this high, like just giant structure of a campaign. You don't want to burn the bridge essentially. But what would you say? So for small businesses, because you kind of I want to touch on a couple things. The buyer's persona. How would a small business find that? How do they figure that out?
Well, if it's a brick and mortar, I mean, just spend a couple days out of your store, right? Understand, roughly what the income level is of the people that are coming in, right? What the age group, different demographics, right? Are you local brick and mortar, coffee shop? Okay, well then decide, okay, it's mostly college kids, because we have 3 community colleges around here, right? They come in, we think that the averagers spend $10, a day or every visit, and then that's mostly, who our buyer persona is. I mean, the step one, if you're looking at marketing, don't let anybody tell you that, oh, that's bad, we got to get a whole new customer base. No, step one is you double down on the people that already come in, right? Like, you can always grow, but once you get that safety net of like, hey, this is what we do, you can always expand it out. But if you take,
I mean, it's your safety net for a reason. Like, exactly.
Right. If you're e-commerce, I mean, look at Google Analytics, look at Google Search Console, right? What are they searching to get to your site? Send out an email for reviews, right? Hey, fill out this questionnaire, right? How can I help? What's the best way? Are they coming from Instagram? Look at your followers. Look at your followers on Facebook that comment or like your posts. From there, you should get a pretty good amount of information to understand, okay, here's my primary buyer persona, here's my secondary, here's some smaller ones. That way you can understand, okay, this is my audience, whether I want it to be something else or not. This is my audience. And then we can, as an agency, if you call me and say, hey, I know who my customer is, how would you target these people if I was an e-commerce store, if I was a brick and mortar? What would that look like? And I say, okay, well, I'd ask a couple questions, do a little discovery as far as like how you provide your services, what your cost is, right? How many times people come to your store, your website every month or week. And from there, I mean, I'm sure, me and you are the same way in this aspect, but, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have, give you some ideas, very, low level, just sort of stuff that you could get started on to at least be able to see results pretty quickly, even if it's just on you.
Yeah. I also think it's also important to kind of have that mentality. Matt, calls it like the servant's heart. essentially, where, you know, yeah, because ultimately, you know, we collectively have that same goal. We want small businesses to succeed, and we just happen to have a very specific skill set, much like Liam Neeson, that allows that to kind of go a step further. What would you say are the biggest differences between like a small business owner or an entrepreneur learning to market themselves as opposed to outsourcing?
So,
obviously the time there's going to be, because like you and I, we went to school for it. And
after the credentials, everything. Wait, I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the way I break it down is there's the book knowledge that like you and I probably learned all of the same things from the same books.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then there's like the real world aspect of marketing. What actually is working right now, because that changes every 2-3 years or what, you know, all of a sudden there's some great breakthrough in technology that changes the landscape of everything. And I would like to think that there's somewhere in the middle between the book way and what's happening here to kind of land that allows for that progression.
Yeah. As far as like small business owners and deciding whether to do it themselves or to outsource, a lot of it, it comes down to price, right? Like me and you, like I live in this world. So, I don't even know how many newsletters I'm in. I look up how many softwares I use, how many websites I go to, just to do everything and anything that I need to do to make sure my clients are, getting money and are getting a return on their investment with me, right? Not to mention the softwares that I pay for, the premium ones, right? Which ones actually work. I'm constantly on, social media, on Google, looking at, different search trends, what's trending today, what videos are up, what new software is out that does this and that, and, what other companies are marketing. So, a lot of it comes down to time where, if they're spending their whole day on their company, right? Do they know about, everything that happened, for instance, on like the stock market the last 2 weeks, right? Popeyes did. Popeyes found out that on Reddit, the Wall Street Bets subreddit that has 9 million people on it, that one of their hashtags was tendies, right? Like chicken tenders. They have a whole video ad campaign now for the next month, to have people download their app. And if they use the GameStop, the AMC, and a couple other tickers from the stock exchange, they can get free tenders, right? Now, if you own a company, like
that's ingenious, by the way. That's ingenious based off the absolute like explosion we did see with that. GameStop and from what I understand, I haven't checked it, since last week, but they're still holding strong. From what I understand, I know there was a little bit of a dip for some time. Because the stock got up to like $400 or $500 at one point. I'd probably sell at that point too. But because that's for some of these people that bought hundreds of stocks and shares, like that's life-changing money. That's I don't blame them. But for the other ones holding their line, I support you. I salute you. Do what you got to do. Absolutely.
But yeah, exactly. But that's like the power of the internet, right? Like the whole story behind that was a bunch of people on the internet are challenging, Wall Street and huge financial firms. And, this subreddit was at 2 million like 3 weeks ago. Now it's at 9 million different people are on this random subreddit talking about stocks. Like if you're not advertising online at this point, like I don't know what you're doing, because everything's pointing to us going online. Bitcoin is about to reach $50,000 per Bitcoin. 8 years ago,
that's insane. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. Because a couple years ago, Bitcoin was still like everybody was like, I don't really like everybody. I mean, there are still skeptics about cryptocurrency. Don't get me wrong. And I do understand their skepticism with anything new and things like that. But there's an old kind of like marketing adage. Right now I can't remember who specifically said it, but you have to go where your customers are. If you're a fisherman or you sell boats, you're going to go to the ocean. You're going to go sell at a lake or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But now in 2021, and probably for the last, I don't know, 15 years, where is everyone? Everyone is on the internet. Everyone is on social media. Everybody has Google and is constantly searching things. I mean, the simple things that we search on Google is crazy. And it's almost become like a dependency. And if you can find a way to find your in that avenue, it's very important to understand that there is no way that you won't grow.